So let's kick it off. Today is Tuesday, Shevat the 16th, 5,783. In case you thought it's 5,782, 84, I just make sure it's 5,783. So we're starting our, and I just see a couple of eyes. John is here. John from Beersheba, Howard Koso. All right, we see you coming in. Still on mute, and we don't see your picture, but I guess we're going to see it momentarily. Here's Howard. Hi, everybody. All right, so we're starting. I just made a brief note of the date. Today is we're almost at 6,000 years marker, pretty close, 5,783. I heard Mashiach came up the other day. We're just waiting his arrival. He's just probably waiting until our class finishes. So we're doing good.
He's stuck in Amsterdam in the airport.
He's done what that Jan Ode would know. He's from Norway. Maybe on the way down here, he'll give him a note to hurry up here. So, all right, guys, let's start. So let me just get Bob suggested yesterday for your discussion. If we run out of time, we have 40 minutes, and we'll decide to spill over to the next one. We'll at that point log in, log out, and come back in, depending how we'll feel. But at 39 minutes. But let me just say briefly, today we have a good, I will spend literally 3 minutes. And if I exceed 3 minutes, you guys tell me left, you're too verbose. And then we're going to give it to David. David will tell us today about interesting thing, Israeli court, Israeli Knesset, what's a big controversy today, and just educate us on that. So, but let me just first, I don't know if you guys had the chance to see it. I literally 3 minutes and I'll get out. Last time I say, let me just share the screen. This chart. And did you guys, I don't know if anybody had a chance to see it?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just very briefly. There was a call from Mashiach. I had to decline. He had to wait. I'm sorry. All right. So, all right. So basically, in this chart, there's three forms. On the left here, the ancient Israel, and I'll be very brief. Only 2 minutes left for me because you saw the chart. This is a present Israel on the right-hand side, and then the lower left right here is American system, which is classical democracy, and A, B, C, D. I tried, and David educated me on this, and I basically translated to what David told me. Probably not exactly exact, but give us some guidelines. Basically. But I wanted to get A, B, C, D. A, what's a guidance, absolute power, absolute rule, halacha, so to speak, whether civil or religious, by which we go, or anybody goes. B, what's the action level? How does government function? C, what's a court, checks and balances? And what is the people? So in ancient Israel, there's a God, Torah, and halacha. That's a red or pink block. So basically, this is a law. Then there's a government, king, with his ministers, the minister of agriculture, minister of war, minister of cutting your heads off. And then there is also a Knesset Gadola, kind of established halacha, if you will. I'm just loosely doing this. And then the Supreme Court, based in Sanhedrin, who runs checks and balances, so to speak. And then everything goes from God through halacha down to people. There's indirect connection from God to people all the time, and official connections through government, through halacha, through the king, through the Beis Din to people. So connection is strong from God to people, informally as well as formally. In the present Israel system, the God and Torah exist, and the connection is strong informally, directly to the people. We'll go to Knesset, we'll go to the synagogue and so forth. But the halacha equivalent, it was a stretch of imagination. Our halacha is a civil, as a democratic, not theocratic society, is declaration of independence from which fundamental laws or basic laws cannot come out. And there is a government equivalent to the king, but instead we have a Knesset and a government, the Knesset does, and a president. These guys make the laws like king did. And then Supreme Court that runs checks and balances so that the Knesset doesn't go against the halacha, which will be, I guess, declaration of dependence on some laws. In the American system, there's a God, there's a Bible that Christians put together, but the connection is now severed. Constitution was flushed out from God and the Bible. Just for us, God and Torah flushed into the halacha. So they also have something, but the connection really lost by and large in America. And it's more and the Congress which the government, Congress, Senate and the House and the President, they actually make the laws, and Supreme Court with 9 judges are running check and balances. So very similarities in operation between A, B, C, and D, but the presence of God or lack of presence of God, or the way the Supreme Court runs checks and balances, by which laws the Supreme Court runs checks and balances, by which authority, that differs from ancient Israel to democracy and to the American system and the similar systems in the world. I know I ran and bumbled very quickly. I hope I didn't exceed my 3 minutes. If I did, I am now apologizing for being too verbose, but this is just a background. And now the reason we did it, because we talked about what's a current problem in Israel. Why all this demonstration? What is it people don't like or like? Is Netanyahu a cutthroat guy, a horrible person, should be in jail, or should be on the pedestal being the king of the country? So the Supreme Court will bow to the Supreme Court, how smart they are, or should we say, guys, why don't you retire? Or maybe something in between. How are we supposed to handle situation? What is the real issue? And with this, David, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I think, if I just may, say that. What? What?
I didn't say
Did
anything.
anyone?
We
Did
can
anyone
hear
say
you.
anything?
We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. No, I just someone said something. Okay. When I when Lev and myself, when we sat down and had a cup of coffee last week, Lev created this chart sort of in front of my eyes, because Lev wanted to. He has this thing, he likes to compare systems. That's, I guess, the mind of an engineer. But I think that probably, if I may say so, I think you sort of you didn't really get it, because I don't think that the comparison to what was 2,000 years ago, up until the destruction of our temple, and what we have today is even comparable, because right from the beginning, 1948, and I would say even with Herzl, by the end of the 1800s, when he proposed Zionism and the plan for a new state for the Jews, it was already a thing that doesn't have any connection to religion, God, or Torah. And so the country, this state of Israel, was envisioned, and actually what was created, came to be as a democratic country. I guess democracy seen as running back to the democracy of Greece, and in Herzl's book, the land of the Jews, it's called Medinat Yehudim, the state of the Jews. It's not called Medina Yehudit, which is a Jewish state. And there's a difference, because if it's a Jewish state, it just might. And he knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted a country for the Jews, not a Jewish country for the Jews. And he wrote, it's in the book, that the religious people, the religious leaders, everybody, they will sit in their synagogues, but we will run the country. Who is we? The Zionists, those who actually can do something, except for sitting in the yeshiva from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening and learning the Talmud. That's what Herzl. That was his vision. And that's one of the reasons why all rabbis in Europe, all the great poskim, they all got letters from Herzl. He wanted them to support a Jewish state in the land of Israel, and they all rejected it, except for a few. They all rejected it. So that's one thing. Now, as far as democracy goes, well, I'm sure everybody knows, the 3 branches of democracy, right? You living in the States, so you have the parliament. We have the parliament, we have government, and we have the court system. And in terms of the old days, when the Torah was the chief thing, the chief document, so to speak, the constitution of the people of Israel was the Torah. That is correct. But the constitution, now we don't have a constitution. we have fundamental laws. Now, the thing between the Torah and even if we had a constitution, even if we can consider the Declaration of Independence to be some kind of a constitution, it's a man-made constitution. Whilst we all agree, well, those Jews who care about Torah agree that Torah is not man-made. It's godly. So it's even more, I would say, categorical, sort of a categorical decree. If that is the right term, I'm not sure it's the right term, like tzav category, like tzav. I think it's a decree, a categorical decree from God. This is what you should do. This is your constitution. This is my covenant with you. This is from God. You cannot, I mean, God is absolute. But the Declaration of Independence is made by people. Whatever declaration, whatever constitution, even the American Constitution. So, I think Lev and Reuven and everyone else who's there from the United States and is in the United States right now, guys can correct me if I'm wrong by saying that from the first moment, the United States Constitution was actually from the first moment, from its inception, had the principle of separation of church and state. So even though they said, okay, one nation under God and all of those things, the state itself, the laws, the constitution, everything that makes the laws, the rules, the how the state should run, how the state should be, etc. All this comes from men because of the separation of church and state, and this is where the personal freedoms come in.
Dave,
So
that's why I X'd it on the chart right here. See, I separated the God Bible from Constitution to reflect what you're saying.
Right. So another thing, Lev, which I think you got wrong, is that unfortunately we are now a nation which is pretty divided on Torah. I don't think you have many thousands, many hundreds of thousands of Jews who do not see Torah as their common ground with other Jews. They actually don't care about Torah at all. You can see them going to the beach on Yom Kippur. Of course, not in Beersheba, but I think that if you live in Tel Aviv, I saw them. I lived in Tel Aviv for 2 years, and I guess that in every city where you have a beach, Tel Aviv, Ashdod, Netanya, Haifa, Akko, every city where you have a beach, you will see Chilonim, at least hardcore Chilonim, definitely going to the beach on Yom Kippur because it's still September usually, and it's still hot, and it's a nice weather.
David, that's why I put the connection between God, Torah, and people here. See the dash line? I call it voluntarily. So it's not official government, voluntarily. Some do, some don't.
Okay. So anyway, so this is the situation. Not every Jew sees the Torah and religion as a common ground with another Jew. I read an article today which really sums it up very like to the point. It says that Arthur Finkelstein, who was Bibi Netanyahu's counselor, advisor on his first election in 1996, he made a very clever distinction. He said to Netanyahu, he made a couple of polls with his people working in his advisory office, and they came to the conclusion that the people who will vote for Netanyahu will identify themselves as Jews. And the people that will vote for the Labor Party, for Shimon Peres at that point, have identified themselves as Israelis. Mm-hmm. So you have a nation separated by those who identify themselves as Jews first and then Israelis, and those who identify themselves only as Israelis, even though they know they're Jews, but we're Israelis. Because they say, okay, Jew means I have some kind of a connection to religion, and this is where I'm coming to the conflict that we have now with the Supreme Court and all of that. So I have to correct another mistake, Lev. In your video, you said 1977, but it's not 1977. 1992, when Aaron Barak has made his sort of constitutional revolution.
The video, your
Let,
video is flickering a little bit, but it's okay.
yes, I
But
know. There's nothing I can do. Okay, just a minute.
it's okay now.
Okay. Basically, what Aaron Barak did is he said that the court judges can interpret laws in more than they used to do in the past, because in 1992 there was a fundamental law that was passed in the Knesset, and the fundamental law is like a constitutional law. It's more than a regular law, okay? And it's called, in Hebrew, it's called Chok Kvod Adam V'Cheruto. It means the law for the human dignity and freedom, which I would compare that probably to the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, freedom of expression, all of those things, the personal freedoms of, that as an Israeli citizen can enjoy by constitution, as a constitutional right. And according to that, Aaron Barak said, well, now everything is judgeable. Everything you do is judgeable. So if you walk down the street and you throw a stone at somewhere, and it hits a wall somewhere, that wall can sue you. Okay, everything is judgeable. And there was another Supreme Court justice who completely rejected this idea, but this was the ultra interpretation. It's exactly like Torah and Torah Sheba'al Peh.
So David, so you're saying the basic law, fundamental law at 92 became sort of like a halakha for Supreme Court, a civil halakha, if you will.
It became like, if the written law is the written Torah, is a written Torah for, like, then you always have commentaries and interpretations. It's unavoidable. But what Aaron Barak did is he just he did not create a Mishnah. He basically created a Gemara. He said that that judges can he invented all sorts of things that basically made everything judgeable. And what the thing that happened because of that was that many everything was now open for appeals. Everything was appealable. Everything was appealable to the High Court, to the Supreme Court. Now the reason they are now panicking.
David, excuse me, and the Knesset couldn't override this decision because in their idea, Supreme Court, like everywhere else, is ultimate authority. So once Supreme Court make decision, too bad, nothing can be done. That's the idea of Aaron Barak, right?
That's the idea, and it's not written in the law. I have the law right here. I can share the screen, but it's in Hebrew, so I don't know. It doesn't matter. I can read it, but it doesn't say this. This is amazing, isn't it? The law, the fundamental law for judges, for justice, does not say that judges can make laws. Surprise! I know. It's news, but it doesn't say so.
But how did he make this law, David? Did he just write it down, or he just said?
No, he didn't. He just made. He made. How does it call it in English? He made some kind of a judgmental precedent, or something. I don't know. But it was all in his head, and I guess he was very powerful. And from that moment, but the reason they are now panicking. Lev, just a minute. The reason I have only 14 minutes.
Okay.
So the reason they are now panicking, and this is where we're getting at. The reason they're panicking is because everything became judgmental. Everything can be appealed to the Supreme Court. So what happened is that all sorts of organizations that are like human rights organizations who only care about Palestinian rights, because they don't care about Israeli rights. They don't care about Jewish rights. They only care about Palestinian rights, and they only care about, the occupation. So basically, they started appealing to the Supreme Court about the human rights of terrorists who killed Israelis. And this is funded in the millions by the United Nations and the European Union. In the millions. You cannot imagine how many millions are put into these organizations and lawyers that are basically offering their services free because they are being paid to by European organizations and the United Nations and the European Union. They're being paid to protect these terrorists and their families, and basically bombarding the Supreme Court with appeals every time a terrorist does something and stays alive. If he's dead, then he's dead. But if he stays alive, they absolutely jump on that terrorist, offer him protection, and basically to make his life as easy, nice and easy as possible, and to protect him from the law itself because of human rights, because of that law that Aaron Barak, and so the entire left in Israel, they because they feel that from 1977, because of the Likud, once Menachem Begin became prime minister, because the Likud won, they feel, and this is going on, it's like almost 50 years now, they feel that the country was stolen from them. Because they built this country from 1948, 1977. They created the Social Labor Party, labor movement, the Social Democrats, David Ben-Gurion, Mapai, Mapam, all of those movements. They see themselves as the owners of the country. And it's gotten now to a point where, I mean, if you compare the ideology of the left, David Ben-Gurion and his peers, to the ideology of the left now, Merav Michaeli and the people in Meretz, David Ben-Gurion would say that the people who are now in the Labor Party are anti-Semitic. This is how far left they have gone. But they are panicking because they feel that they are losing power, because the occupation of the West Bank and all of the territories that were occupied in 1967, this is their, like, this is their, I would say, it's their oxygen for their existence.
David, quick question. But if when Supreme Court, Aaron Barak made this law, so to speak, why
he didn't make this law? He didn't make this law. The Knesset made this law, and he decided that he's more powerful than the law itself.
So Knesset made this law, and Supreme Court then started interpreting the law is their laws the way they want to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, Supreme Court cannot say that they made the law. They didn't. They say, you guys, Knesset did it. We just interpreted it.
Yeah, we just interpreted, and they interpreted in a way that was not the real intention of the legislature.
But then doesn't Knesset have the right to take this law out? It's Knesset who makes the law, not the court.
Yes, they have the right to take. They have the right to cancel their own laws.
And this is what they're trying to do now. Is that what it is?
No. So now what Yariv Levin is trying to do, the minister of justice.
He sits here, right?
What?
He sits here, right here, in government.
He's in the government, yeah.
Okay.
He's the minister. He's in the government.
I'm just pointing to the blue
block. That's where ministers are.
Okay.
Let him talk, for goodness sake.
Sorry, Ruben. I'm Shalabi.
So what Yariv Levin wants to do is basically to create a situation where we go back prior to 1992 to what we call a conservative court, where the court doesn't think that he can overthink or interpret some kind of a constitutional law or fundamental law and say, well, I can be more than the Knesset, which is the people. I can be more than the people have appointed me to be by law. So, because what it means is that I am the law and not the people. That's taking away the people's sovereignty of their own country, right? So, and that's not a democracy. That's undemocratic, because democracy is the rule of the people. So, so this is what Yariv Levin, and they're using Deri, and they're using all sorts of excuses because they're panicking now, and they're being funded by the European Union and all sorts of United Nations organizations for human rights and Palestinian rights and peace organizations and all of that, basically being funded. I wouldn't be surprised if those organizations are actually those who are funding the riots not riots, how should I call it, the rallies in Tel Aviv, and all of what's going on in the media and all of that. They pay huge sums of money to basically divide us on something that is very, very simple, and which is a principle in every healthy democracy. They don't want us to be a democracy because they don't want us to be independent. This is a thing that is to undermine, in the end, this is to undermine the very sovereignty and, in the end, the existence of the state of Israel. That's all.
Wow. Guys, we have about
the
15
irony
minutes
is they say
questions.
they say it's to protect democracy, but it's like,
Yeah, it's a defending
North
national.
Korea also calls themselves a democratic People's Republic.
No,
They're democratic like North Korea is democratic.
I have a quick question to Dave. You mentioned dairy, for example. Here's a question I just don't know. If by the law, I think you answered to me one time, but I'm not sure. If the guy goes to prison and then leaves the prison, isn't he by law acquitted? Now he's a normal citizen. If you can't hold against him, like in other words, if I was in prison, then get out. Why can't I have while I'm in prison, it's I'm a convict. But once I paid my dues, can't I run for government?
Yeah,
that would be fine for a normal citizen, but we're talking about a representative of the government who was involved in reprehensible activity for his own personal gain, not only once, but twice. And after the second time, he again refused to acknowledge the courts and did whatever he wanted to. And even the courts have said that he is not a fit person to represent the people. I agree with that.
But it might be true. But did you say that court? I mean, what Jonathan is saying made a point. But you're saying, but court, with all due respect to court, couldn't make the decision. It's not up to court to decide that, is it?
Okay, so technically, Aryeh Deri was after he was in prison, he couldn't run for Knesset or any government position for 7 years, which he didn't. And that is what the law prevented him. Now, if you ask me personally, I think he shouldn't be back. Okay, but this is a question of values, because if we were Japan, I think that Aryeh Deri would have committed a harakiri 100 years ago. Okay, because in Japan it's actually shameful to be in this kind of, to be, oh, I am a criminal, but I'm in the government, But I guess people here have different values, and the court doesn't have a say on values. That's not the court's job. The law says that you cannot run for a position for 7 years, which he didn't. Okay, so the problem that we have is a problem of values, and this is a problem that only can be solved only via this kind of discourse, and then taking this discourse back to the Knesset. And what the Knesset did is to say, okay, we're going to make a law that for 7 years, if you been charged with a crime, you've done time in jail, so for 7 years you cannot come back. So he didn't.
But not emotionally, legally. Can the person that was in prison and no longer in prison run for the government? Legally, I mean, emotion can say,
yes,
well,
after 7 years. After 7 years, yes, no problem.
This goes back to what David said before. When the country was created, those people who've been here for a while know about the Histadrut, the labor unions. The labor unions were so strong in the 50s and 60s. I remember the example given was that a head nurse in a hospital, if it was proven that she had murdered somebody, she was taken to court, charged with murder, found guilty and convicted, and went to jail for 20 years or 25 years or 30 years. When she got out of jail, she could go back to her job because the Histadrut, the labor union, said that is sacrosanct, and that was part of the law as well. There are really screwy things in this country. What I want to say that
I agree. I agree with you.
These-
Who's that speaking? Is it John?
Yeah, Jonathan. The thing that really gets me is that there in the United States there is a separation of church and state. Here in Israel, when we have a Supreme Court, I sent the link before about the article today in today's Israel National News. These are not representatives of the people. These are people who are chosen from among themselves, from between themselves. They're not impartial. They choose their friends, and nobody.
The judges.
Yeah, the judges. They're
That's
not
not
voted
true.
in. They're simply chosen by other judges. And
It is
so-
true. It is true.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
They are elected by the president of Israel.
I
After
can
a
read you
they
the law.
are
I have the
committee.
law.
They're
I have
approved.
the law. I have the law of the fundamental law for that's what it's called, fundamental law for judgment, and it says what is the who is on the committee. Can I do a share screen? Will it work? Let's try.
I think I have to give you. Hold on, multiple. Okay,
Also disabled participant screen sharing. Okay.
you should be able to do it now, David.
Okay. Okay. So share. This is the first time I'm doing it, so please forgive me. I know. Let's see. Okay.
We have 6 minutes. In a couple of minutes, we have to decide to stop at 40
Right,
minutes or to
right,
spill for the
right.
next session. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Do you see the PDF coming?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Good. Good. Okay. So what it says. הוועדה תהיה של 9 חברים. The committee will have 9 members, which are the president of the Supreme Court, 2 judges, two other judges from the Supreme Court, so that's already 3. The Minister of Justice and another minister appointed by the government, 2 members of the Knesset, and 2 members of the Lishkat Orchei Hadin. Reuven, how did you call them?
The Israeli Bar Association, I would say.
Right, the Israeli Bar Association, and the Minister of Justice will be the Yoshev Rosh, the the head of the committee. So that's 9 members. Out of 9 members, you have 3 judges and 2 members of the bar, which are usually very familiar with most judges. So, so that's it.
David, but when they vote, do they vote like 9 against 0 or like 5 against 4 usually?
I don't know.
Because if they vote 9 against 0, it supports Jonathan's point. They're all together as a gang. But if they vote 5-4 or 6-3, that means there's some debate among the court guys.
Is there a minimum? Is there a minimum number of votes prospective judge has to get in order to be accepted?
7.
It doesn't say so, actually.
7 out of 9.
7.
David, what is the basis for a judgment in Israel? In the United States, you have a constitution. In a parliamentary system such as England, judgment is based on tradition, the tradition of laws. But when the Supreme Court in Israel makes a judgment, what are they basing their opinion on?
Basically, first of all, upon the law. And sometimes the law, and this is a funny thing, we have a continuation of laws dating back to the British Mandate and Ottoman Empire. There's some laws. I don't know how important these laws are, but I guess it's what you would call tradition, but mostly upon written law of the Knesset.
Yeah, Yanov, mention something. You just said that 7 out of 9 has to be approved. Have to approve.
Lev, can you help me here?
Yes.
I'm trying to share the screen so to give it back to you.
Oh, just I don't know. Just go to below. There's a share screen. Click on that and then unshare it.
Up at the top of the screen, there's the green tab. You're viewing. You have a green tab
Click
on
on
the
that.
top.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so
Click
click
on
on
it.
that and stop sharing, or view options and stop sharing.
It doesn't say so.
Yes, it does.
Zoom. Okay.
No, up above that. Right at the
Or
top
at
of
the
the
bottom
window.
of your screen, there's a green share screen button. Click
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah.
also
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Click on that and then unshare.
No, it
Stop
only
sharing.
says share. Only share.
Hmm.
Unbelievable.
So
Uh, yeah, it only says share.
Lev, I think you
Well,
can
click
take
on
it
it. Did
away
you
from
click
him.
on it?
Click on it.
I
Click
don't
on
see you
share.
clicking on it.
Okay. I did.
Oh, did it work? I tried to.
Yeah, Lev, I think you can stop him from sharing.
I'm trying. I don't know how to use it. We have 2.5 minutes, but I want. What are we doing anyway? Yano, Yano is the first time on our session, so he's not used to the fact that we don't burn anybody on the stake after the session. We have a democratic thing. But if you said 7 out of 9 have to approve, right?
Yes.
But if that's the case, David says there's 3 judges, the Supreme, and there's 2 more bar associations, so it's 5. Well, 5, if the other 4 is just 2 Knesset guys and 2 somebody else. So theoretically, if 4 guys will be against, it's 5 against 4. They can get the judge. So it's not that simple. It's not that straightforward to get the same body system.
No, they need unity to elect someone.
But they don't have a unity because it's only 3 of them on the committee out of 9.
If more than 2 of them disagree with the majority, then they cannot decide.
What I'm playing devil's advocate to demonstrate that the Supreme Court, contrary what Jonathan is saying, does not have unlimited power to grab their buddies in, because in order to do that, it must be 7, and they're only 3 plus 2 more, it's 5. So there is a limit of power of what they can do. 4 other guys can say, no, this guy we're not going to get, and that's it. He doesn't get, so they'll make it. You see what I'm trying to say? Court does not have unlimited things, as Jonathan. Maybe I'm challenging a little bit your point.
Anybody who has been in any club, you know that the people in their top committee, they can do basically whatever they want, and if votes run against them, they simply boot them out and choose somebody else who's going to agree with them.
Well, guys, we have 40 seconds. Would you like to log out and come back in?
Yes.
Let's do it then. Okay. Whoever can make it, I'm gonna log out and come back in, and in 2 minutes I'll see you back in the dessert session.